Oh, g'day. How you doing? Adam Williams here. It's Thursday. Where does the time go? Where do these days go? It's just absolutely crazy how quickly these days are flying by. I hope everyone's well. I'm just waiting for my phone to come up here and let me know that am coming through loud and clear as we go. Well, there we go. I can hear myself there, so it's all good. I got the microphone on, the video's working. Happy days, we're good to go. Hey guys, okay, a couple of quick things. Get the likes going. If you enjoy these morning videos, Tuesday, Thursdays, hit the like button. Let YouTube know that it's worth watching. It all helps. Comments help, likes help, subscribes help. What else helps? Oh, how long you watch the video for helps as well. Now, that's not critical to leave the video running or anything like that, but you know, thanks for all of those little bits and pieces that help the channel. Couple of things in the description below. Have a look down there. If you haven't already signed up or you're not part of the email list, jump on down there, sign up to the email list, and you will get it's about over 100 photography tips will come through weekly. Well, not 100 every week, but one every week or a couple every week from myself and other really great talented photographers as well. Cranking the mullet, yeah, absolutely. I've got the ISO mullet, the isolation mullet going. Look at this, yeah, it's looking good. I might have to shave the top here and get a little bit of a spike going on top and really crank the mullet out the back one day for you guys. My little boy said last night, we need to shave your head, Dad. Last time I let him shave it, we had this brand new set of clippers and I wasn't really sure, you know, what the settings were, and it ended up just like clean shaving to the scalp. It was a really interesting look actually. Hey Beverly, how you doing? We got a lot of people here. William here, bonjour. Tony, Karen, Malin. Who else have we got here? Terry, Barry. Barry, I haven't seen that name before. Are you new this morning, Barry? Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. I just haven't seen that name before. Peter, Jason. Yeah, the mullet, mate. How about that? Oh, it's Tom Putt here. Tom's here as well. Good to have you here, Tom. Tom, I was watching you on the guys. If you haven't already looked up talking landscape photography on YouTube, it's a few mates of mine, Tasmanian-based photographers. You've got Luke Sharkey, Paul Holland, and Nick Monk, I believe, are the three that the founders of Talking Landscape Photography. Last night they did a book on the benefits of printing and producing your own photography books. It was a really, really interesting conversation. Tom Putt was on there, Ignacio Palacios was on there, and a few others. It was really good. In the house, Tom Putt. Daryl's here, Andy's here, Rosie's here, Debbie, I haven't seen your name there before either. Hands up if you're new anyway. I love seeing new people here as well. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. All right, guys, we do it Tuesday, Thursdays. It's a bit of fun. We don't take it too seriously. Half the time I don't even know what I'm doing, to be honest. You know, I just get up in the morning and what are we going to do today? And today we're going to do a live edit. We're going to run through the workflow on an image that's a little bit ordinary. And we're going to try and make it something special by adding my favorite techniques. My favorite techniques. I'm laughing at the comments as they come up. Tom Putt, hashtag legend. Hashtag Tom Putt legend. Couldn't have said it better myself. Jordan Cantello. G'day mate, how you doing? I love Jordan's storm photography. He's one of the great storm photographers over there in WA and has captured some epic images over his time. Was there a good sunrise down your way, Tom, this morning? Barry is telling us. I don't think there was here. I didn't get out of bed for it if there was, but it was pouring with rain and it still is a bit rainy up here. No shoe without Tom, no show without Tom. Mac, I think you're right there. Last night was good. Robin was watching last night. Okay, guys, let's get into it. But yeah, if you haven't tuned in and subscribed to Talking Landscape Photography, they do it every Wednesday night, different topic. It's usually a panel type thing. It's a lot of fun. It's a good conversation, good photography conversation. Debbie, sorry about that, Debbie. You said you're on the Easy Way courses already. Best thing you ever did. Thank you so much. Thank you. Great to have you here as well. No cloud this morning, Tom. All right, guys, let's switch over. We're going to jump over here. Hopefully I've got the right screens all set up. There we go. I can now see your comments over here on the main screen. We're in Lightroom here, and this is the image that we're going to work up. Now, this one's an interesting one. It was when I was traveling Australia recently, and it was, oh, where was it? There's a little town called Breadbow, which is towards the southern end of the ACT, sort of on the border of ACT, New South Wales, I think, somewhere around about there. And I was out shooting all day that day, and I was coming home and the sun was setting, and it was kind of overcast, and the sun dropped into this hole on the horizon and just lit up the landscape with the most incredible light, pretty much that I'd ever seen. And the funny thing about RAW files, the funny thing about RAW files is this was literally one of the best light shows I've ever seen as far as golden light. And look on the RAW file here, it's just not zinging at all, is it? It's just not doing it. But all the information's there, and we should be able to tease it out. But keep in mind, remember back to one of the most spectacular golden light shows you've ever seen, and that's what we're going to try and infuse into this, or tease out of this, because it was there. It was incredible. You can see a little bit of hints of some of the beautiful light down the sides of the trees here, bursting through this hole in the clouds. But RAW files are just not designed to be straight out of camera, breathtaking photos. RAW files, modern RAW files in particular, with all of their dynamic range, are designed to capture the maximum amount of information. So as great as RAW files are, they're terrible if you don't know how to Lightroom or Photoshop, or you don't have a workflow to really bring them out. You'd be better off maybe shooting with your iPhone or shooting in JPEG on your digital camera if you don't really have a decent workflow. But in saying that, sometimes we've got to take a step back and learn the workflow so that we can really express ourselves creatively and get the absolute most out of our photos. Now, in saying that, down below, if you're not already a member of Easy Way Photography, down below there's a link to my Essentials Beginner Photoshop workflow, which is essentially what we're going to be running through here, but obviously over at easywayphotography.com.au, quick plug, I go a lot slower and a lot more deliberate, and it's broken up into small 5-10 minute videos rather than I'm going to race through this a little bit quicker here. Malin, you call this ordinary? Look, the composition's pretty good. I like the composition. It's got a good subject. It's got the beginnings of good light. And look, to be honest, Malin, you're right. It's about as good as a RAW file gets. But to the untrained eye, when you're standing there capturing this scene, you think this is just spectacular, and you take a snap on the iPhone and it just pops off the iPhone, and then you get home and look at your RAW files and you're like, huh? Really? It looked a lot different, a lot more vibrant than what the RAW file is showing, but it's kind of been compressed a little bit. The contrast gets compressed, the light gets compressed, the color gets compressed with the RAW, and they're designed to do that. But that's where we need Lightroom and Photoshop to really make them sing. So let's do that. Lightroom, so I'm going to run through the basic workflow, and if you're interested in learning that basic workflow, have a look down below. Or you can learn most of it off this video too, but there is a bunch more in the tutorials as well, and obviously you have that structure, and it's a much easier way to learn on the course over there, okay? Sea breeze. Oh, you guys are having a bit of a chat in there. Running late, Diane, that's okay. Sue Ellen must catch up on talking landscape photography. Yeah, it's a great one. All right, my Lightroom section of my workflow, and you can learn all the settings. I won't run through the specifics too much right here. My Lightroom section of the workflow is generally pretty simple, pretty straightforward. All I'm doing is trying to prepare the image for Photoshop. Now, in this case, you can actually see from the histogram in the top right corner over here that it's starting to clip. The highlights are starting to clip. That's when they hit the end and they start to sort of crash up, if you like, crunch up in the end. And that can be clipping, and that can be bad, but you can clip a little bit and recover in Lightroom with the highlights slider. So in fact, we'll zoom into this area. We can see that area there quite clearly. It's a bit bright and lacking detail, but in fact, when we put it back up to where the RAW file was there, it's hurting my eyeballs with its brightness. But as we turn that down, You can see we get all that detail back. So one of the main benefits of shooting RAW, although they don't look as good as a JPEG when we first press the shutter, is we can recover the shadows. How incredible is that? That we've been able to take the RAW file from there with those almost blown out highlights and really pull them back and get all that detail back. So that's amazing. I think so. Absolutely. All right, shadows. Do we need to? Look, the interesting thing about shadows is they're very underrated, and shadows really, really help to tell the story of the light. So we don't want to completely, well, sometimes we might, but usually we don't want to completely obliterate the shadows, okay? Because the image becomes less interesting because it's got less contrast, less difference, and difference is good. The difference between light and shadow is very, very good. So in this case, we might just pop them up a little, but not too much. As we move down, I generally don't touch clarity or these sliders for the time being. Daryl says, is the flat RAW file or the RAW file itself responsible for why a brilliant blue sky that you might capture on your iPhone or even see with your eye often looks a bit dull and grey in the RAW file? Absolutely. Absolutely it is. And we need to bring that vibrance and bring that contrast back to the image to make it more so like we saw it, and just give it more wow factor and more of that explosion of light popping off the screen, like what we see on Instagram. You know, a lot of the photographers that we follow or the photos that we like on Instagram, it's just this. It's just the placement of contrast and light, which is really important. Exactly. I can't believe how great this workflow is going to be, Tom Putt. It's going to be incredible. Well, let's see. I don't know. It might not be. It might not be. I haven't edited this file for, nearly 2 years, I suppose. So, you know, it's a bit winging it. Okay, so as we move down, tone curve. Have a play with tone curve in Lightroom. Absolutely. Experiment with all these things. The HRCell panel as well. Have a play with that. Split toning. Have a play with that. But generally in my everyday workflow, I'm not messing about with those. I'm preparing the file for Photoshop and zipping it straight over there. The detail panel, I will just do a quick, I'm not going to, often I'll zoom into 100% and make sure this is the right thing to do, but in a quick edit, I'll just quickly set those settings up, roughly 30 points of sharpening, push the radius all the way to the left and the detail all the way to the right. I have much more detailed explanations in the course if you're interested. Many of you are already in the course though, aren't you? So you know that. Noise reduction, 30 points there. Detail, again, all the way to the right, gives us the maximum protection. And look, this image probably doesn't have any noise, to be honest, or any noise to worry about. Look at that, it's a beautiful image. You know, no, it's pretty good, isn't it? It doesn't really have any noise, but usually I just set these at 30 points with a detail all the way to the right, and it's a nice default so that I don't have to worry. In fact, I have an import preset that normally sets all those details up for me. That's good. That's really about it. Lens corrections. I normally click Enable Profile Corrections and Remove Chromatic Aberration. Again, I'll explain all of that in the course if you're interested as to what they do. Exactly. Yeah, the raw file's like the negative. You know, it's only half the job. We still have to process it and edit it like we used to do. Well, not that I would know, but like they used to do in the darkroom. I've never done any darkroom work. Yep. Halos, zoom into 100% to check for halos, but if you're not using clarity and you're not aggressively sharpening, you're probably pretty safe anyway. That's all I do. Now we're going to shoot it to Photoshop. Right click on the image, edit in Photoshop. Oh, what has we got here? Render using Lightroom. I've obviously need to update one of these programs or something. If you're new, you might notice that I'm using an older version of Lightroom and Photoshop. It's because my streaming setup, the streaming computer here is an old Mac, and my education producing machine is a brand new Windows machine over here. And in fact, on the weekend, I'm thinking of bringing the Windows machine up and using it for streaming as well as recording. So I've got the latest version of Lightroom and Photoshop for you guys. Okay, here we are in Photoshop. Step 2 of the workflow is file correction. We're going to do color correction, straighten the horizon, looks pretty straight, and dust removal. I don't think I have any, so we might not do that either. And auto curves. Let's do that now. Color correction, I normally, again, I don't think I need to, but we'll see what happens. Command or Control J to duplicate that layer. And I can double click on the text of any layer in Photoshop if I like. Double click, color correction. I don't know if that's right. I am the world's worst speller. I am so bad at spelling, like when the little red zigzag comes up under a word in a Word document or an email, and I hover over it to see what the correct word should be, the spelling correct doesn't even know what I'm trying to say. It's like, you're that far wrong that we don't even know what that word's meant to be. That's pretty bad. Adobe, yeah, Adobe, yeah, absolutely. Tim says Adobe updated all programs last night, Lightroom, Adobe Camera Raw, and Photoshop. There isn't any well, there's some major updates in how the programs look, so in the surface, the aesthetic, if you like, and the set out, but there isn't any, well, I had a look last night at what everything is, and it doesn't seem to be anything that terribly affects my workflow at this point. I haven't updated as yet. I can't update this one. I haven't updated the other one as yet. I will do it over the weekend more than likely. Color correction. We got the duplicate layer. We come up here. Where do we go? The image menu, adjustments, match color. I think it's pretty good. Let's see what happens. Terrible. Okay. This is a great example, in fact, of not what not to do, but what can happen. This color correction technique generally works really well for most images. But sometimes in a golden light situation, what happens is it sees all that golden hue across the entire image. It thinks it's like a color cast, you know, because it's got a consistent golden hue across the entire image. So because it thinks there's a color cast, it removes it. And you can see we've got a very cold blue image. Now you might like to make this really cold and blue, but for me, not so much. So we could either just turn that layer off for now, or we could delete it altogether. We might use it later. Maybe we'll use it later. So I'll just turn it off. Maybe we'll layer it in later. Okay, Camera Raw now looks more like Lightroom apparently. Okay. Straighten the horizon. This one's a bit of a by eye thing. Like normally I would click the crop tool here, click on, let's just reset that, clear that. Reset my crop, there we go. I would normally click on the straighten icon here and run that across what I think was the horizon. Well, these trees look nice and straight. The way you would do that is just click and drag out and run it parallel to the horizon. But to be honest, the horizon looks, it's a bit hilly with a few sort of mountains or whatever you want to call them, big hills. And it looks pretty good. I don't think I really need to do much. The trees look nice and straight. So we'll just leave it as is. Okay. But in a normal seascape image where you have a set horizon, that would be a very handy tool or a very handy process. Now dust removal. Again in the course I have a dust finder action. It's actually in the intermediate level of the course, not the beginner level. Because I don't want to throw everything at you all in one go. We move through nice and slowly so you get 100% comfortable with all of the techniques as we move through. So I don't really have any dust here again, but you know, dust removal is pretty straightforward. It's explained in detail in the course, so we'll skip beyond that too. Auto curves is a beauty. Okay, we're going to come down here. This is where our adjustment layers are. Right in the bottom right corner of the screen, you'll see a little black and white circle, little black and white beach ball. Click on there. Click curves for this particular adjustment. We're going to do an automatic adjustment. Auto curves, click on that. Look at that already. Pretty good, wasn't it? There are some other options though. If we hold down Option or Alt and click on Auto again, the Auto button again. If I ran through too quickly, there's the Auto button there. Okay, that does all the hard work. That brings up this menu and we can just flick through. That was much like the color correction filter that we applied before, wasn't it? Those two, a bit blue. That one's a bit green. That one's a bit more blue, magenta. This one is very nice. Maybe we won't push too far. The problem, I mean, that's great, and it's almost, you could click that and the image would be nearly finished, wouldn't it? But in this case, I want a little bit of wiggle room to push and pull the image around, so we might go with the more subtle version, that one there. We can also click Snap Neutral Midtones. And that warmer light probably suits. What do you guys think? You know, without Snap Neutral? Actually, we'll leave it without. I like the bluish tinge to the sky. Boom, Jason, auto curves. Yeah, it can be a bit of a boom moment. In fact, I was doing a live tutorial the other day, much like this one, where auto curves, I clicked the button and the image was finished. It just did such a great job of adjusting the contrast and the levels that the image was pretty much done. So that was a short tutorial. No, actually, we ended up turning it off and going about it the manual way. But okay, now, once we get to this level, that's the end of workflow step 2. So pretty straightforward. Workflow step 1 in Lightroom, pretty easy stuff, nothing too hard there. Workflow step 2, correction, color correction, horizon straightening, dust removal, auto curves. We can all manage that without a drama. Daryl asks a good question. Do you need to be concerned about destructive versus non-destructive techniques in Photoshop? Short answer, yes. Another short answer, all the techniques that I teach are non-destructive. Just to let you know or give you a bit of background of what the term means, destructive, non-destructive. Destructive and non-destructive refers to, or let's say non-destructive techniques, which is the preferred way of editing. It gives you more flexibility. The reason it gives you more flexibility is because non-destructive refers to applying techniques that can be adjusted or removed or undone after you've saved and closed the file. So you apply all these techniques, all the techniques I'm applying now. Once I get to the end and think I'm finished, I could save that layer file, close it, turn off the computer, come back a day or two later, open it back up, have all my layers there and be able to turn off or adjust the effect of every individual adjustment that we've done. Now, destructive techniques refer to techniques that cannot be adjusted after you've saved and closed down, okay? So you can see the benefit of non-destructive there. It gives you the flexibility, particularly when you're first starting off in Photoshop, or Lightroom is completely non-destructive anyway. But Photoshop can be destructive in the fact that you can do some techniques that cannot be undone once you close the file down. So particularly when we're starting out in Photoshop, it's much better to do non-destructive, because as we work the file up, we can go a bit overboard, and I probably will today. It's nice to be able to come back and adjust that, okay? Bill, yep, step 1 can be set up as a preset. My Lightroom step 1 is like a 15-second process. As you said there, 99% is a Lightroom preset, then I just check it, make sure the preset's done the right thing and shoot it over to Photoshop. And we do learn how to set up those presets within the course as well. Yeah, okay, absolutely, all in the course. All right, so where are we? Okay, we're up to workflow step 3. Now step 3 is the important one. This is the one where we're going to really try and add the light, the explosion of light, the wow factor, and all that cheesy stuff that I can't think about that's designed to get you excited. But that's what we're going to do. We're trying to make a really exciting image here. Something that's going to get us lots of likes and followers on Instagram, if that's a thing. It's not a thing, be aware. Try not to get sucked into the Instagram likes and followers thing. It's nice, and I enjoy it as much as the next person does, absolutely. But be aware that you are being influenced and channeled to create a certain style of image by what people like. Okay, so enjoy the likes and enjoy the compliments, but try not to let it make the creative decisions for you as to what style of photography you're going to produce or capture. Okay. Oh, David, yeah, absolutely. You got me there. I didn't do any masking on my sharpening, did I? I should have, absolutely. It's in the courses as well. There's a little masking slider. That's 100% correct. You should always mask out your sharpening out of your softer areas like the sky. Got me, got me, got me. Good pickup. All right. So, workflow step 3, as I said, we're going to apply the wow factor, the explosion of light and all the cheese. And the way we do that, I've got a little philosophy, which is to reveal and conceal. Now, you might have heard that in Photoshop education before, but this is a different thing, a different spin. Normally, reveal and conceal is to in relation to masking. In this case, what I want to do, nothing to do with masking, what I'm talking about is we want to reveal or make the interesting more interesting, okay? And conceal the not so interesting and make it not as interesting. I'm sure there's a better way of verbally saying that, but essentially what we're going to do to make things, elements in your image more interesting. So what was the reason I stopped here and grabbed this particular composition? It wasn't the incredible light. I had many, many other opportunities. I was driving the car along the highway and I had many opportunities to stop anywhere, but I knew this grove of trees was up the road, or I thought it was. I saw it on the way down the road several hours earlier. The reason I stopped was for the trees. So the interesting part of this image is the trees and the way the light interacts with the trees. So that's what we're going to really emphasize here. And the rest of the image, we're going to try and knock it back a bit. And as you know, if you knock back, you know, the contrast and the color and the brightness, it will make the contrast and color and brightness in the trees brighter and more saturated and more interesting, because the background, there's more juxtaposition, if you like, between the two. If you have everything looking incredibly awesome and incredibly saturated and you know, just awesome from corner to corner, side to side, then the element that you actually want to stand out won't really stand out as much. So what we tend to do is leave some things a little bit ordinary and then bring some things up really, really to a high level, and that will make them as you know, as interesting and as attention grabbing as they possibly can be. Bill asks, can you go to the background layer and do the sharpening masking in Camera Raw? Yeah, you could. It's not something that I teach, but you absolutely could go there. It's already been sharpened, so we don't need to actually add any more sharpening yet. That would happen at the end of the workflow now. But yeah, I mean, whatever suits, if that's what you like to do, absolutely. All right. So with that philosophy, we're going to make the subject and the trees really zing by adding more light, more contrast, more color. Let's add some more light initially. Curves layer. Okay, so these are all our adjustment layers. The really great thing, or one of the great things, it's like a talking advert, isn't it, about my workflow, which you'll find in the description, is it's really simplified. You'll see there's 25 odd layers here, but I'm only going to use like 2, maybe 3 today, that's it. And like, we're not missing out on anything. That's all you need, essentially. Curves. With our curves layer, one point in the middle and drag up a little bit like that. You can see the color hue of this image is not quite right either. It's a little bit green tinged, and I want it more golden. We'll bring that around in a minute as well. Okay, so we've just added the brightening. Now, this is where the layer mask comes in. I'll run through this quickly, and I know a lot of you have heard me run through this multiple times before, but for those that are new and a bit unsure about layer masking is where all the power of Photoshop really comes to the forefront, if you like. This is the layer mask here, this little white window, and you can see when the window is white, it's currently affecting the entire image, you know, brightening the entire image. That's before, that's after. Okay. Hello from Chicago, Duran. G'day. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that name right. If you're new, which I think you might be, jump back and have a look at the previous videos and you'll see I am absolutely laughable when it comes to pronouncing names. So I hope I did a reasonable job, mate. But great to have you here, all the way from Chicago. All right. Now, when the layer mask is white, let's call the layer mask a window. And what the window will do, when it's white, it's clear and it's allowing the adjustment to go through and affect the image below, the image down here, see? See how it's affecting? But if I invert the layer mask, Command or Control I to invert, the layer mask turns black. We can see the adjustments still active up here in this panel, but you can see as I turn that on and off, no effect. It's hidden behind a black window because you can't see through a black window, so it's not allowing the effect to go through and hit or be applied to the background image. But if we grab a white brush and start cleaning the window with white paint, we'll start cleaning the window with white. What do you think is going to happen? Playing at home, if you're playing at home, what's going to happen? White brush, so B for brush. I've got my settings here, roughly about 30% opacity, roughly about 50% flow. I explain all the details of that in the course. Up in this menu here, make sure your hardness is on 0%. Down here, I explain all of these in more detail, but essentially click on the little tiny black and white icon. That will set your defaults to black and white. And this little arrow will switch between black and white. Make sure white's on top. Terry, you're from the USA as well. I think I knew that. But yeah, welcome everyone from the USA. It's the time slot for this live show. It suits Australia and the USA a little bit better than most locations in the world, I believe. Is it evening time for you guys over in the USA there? I believe it might be, you know, between, depending on which side of the country you're on, between like 4 p.m. and 8 or 9 or 10 p.m. maybe. Whereas in Australia, we're kind of the reverse of that. It's, you know, in WA, it's kind of early-ish, 8:30 or so, and here in on the East Coast, 10:40 it happens to be. Yep, Utah. Okay, so with our white brush, hopefully the white window allows the effect to come through. The black window blocks it. Now with a white brush, we can apply. The beautiful thing about layer masking is I can brush the white brush where I want. Watch this. Very subtle down those trees there. We'll just give that a little paint. A little bit there, a little bit on the foreground. There we go. And if we turn that on and off, can you see just a little subtle brightening to those trees? That's going to help. Don't do too much in one go. Like painting, we're going to layer, layer, layer up and get a nice, beautiful, invisible editing. So I don't want to see my brush strokes, so I don't want to see light bleeding. You know, we're going to get there by doing that. 8:44 in the USA, Seabreeze says. Yeah, guys, I think it works quite well, this time slot for you and us, which is great. Tell your friends. Tuesday, Thursdays, or actually it's not for you guys, is it? Monday, Wednesday evenings, I believe. But yeah, tell your friends, get them to come along, and the more the merrier. What is the opacity there? Yeah, opacity 30%. It's at 28 actually, but roughly 30%, and the flow at roughly 50 is my go-to. And you shouldn't, as a beginner to Photoshop, you shouldn't have to change that. That'll be a really, really good setting. Okay, now let's add a little bit of contrast, then we'll have a mess about with the color. Would you also painting out the greenish? Yeah, we are going to deal with that greenish in a minute, Terry, absolutely. Luxembourg, 2 a.m. Good on you, Georges. Great to see you. In fact, we've got a couple of others from that region of the world that stay up late at night or have trouble sleeping, and maybe my tone of voice helps them get to sleep. So yeah, hopefully. All right, we'll deal with that in a minute. Let's add some contrast. So as I said, add more light, more contrast, more color into that region will really make it pop. Then we're going to darken the surrounds and really trying to get something cool. Contrast, curves layer again. Curves does all our lightening, darkening, and contrast. In fact, before we do the contrast, let's darken. One point in the middle, drag down now. Get a bit of drama. I like drama. If you're new, you'll soon discover that I like to process right over the top. I'm a very over the top processor, but you can process to whatever level you like. Now, with that layer mask, can you see? Before, after, so it's darkening down, okay? And we only want to darken the areas that are not terribly significant so that the significant areas really jump out. Okay, so now that we're darkening, once again, Command or Control I, turn the mask black so it's doing nothing. B for brush, might make that brush a little bigger. And with a white brush, we're going to clean the window, which will allow that darkening effect through. All right, It's quite subtle with a 30-50 brush, but don't be tempted to brush on faster with a heavier brush. You're better off doing 5-10 brush strokes than doing one heavy one. All right? All right, let's have a look. Look at that. See, we're adding a vignette. We're darkening the edges, which is drawing attention into the middle. Before, after. That's quite nice. All right. No fancy masks required just yet. We might play with a few of those. Peter Eastway over the top. Take Peter Eastway and times it by a factor of a few more. 5, 10. No, I take a lot of influence from Peter Eastway. So my over-the-topness was actually interesting story. And a lot of you might resonate with this. When I was an up-and-coming, passionate amateur photographer, let's say, in my first 2-3 years of photography, I was always very creative and I was always drawn to unusual over-the-top editing, but I was a bit shy about it because a lot of photographers that I looked up to would publicly say on social media and even sometimes publicly say to my face that, you can't do this or you can't do that, or the colors have to be natural, or the contrast has to be this, or you're doing too much of that, or this or that. And then I enrolled at Peter Eastway's masterclass, a great little Photoshop course, and I have no affiliation to Peter's course other than the fact that I loved it and it gave me a great sense of freedom. And I watched Peter Eastway do what he does to his photos, and a light bulb went off, and I said, you know what, you're allowed to do whatever you like. And that's become a real philosophy of mine, particularly in my education, is I don't teach styles, I don't tell you what you can't do or what you can do. I teach you the tools and the techniques and hopefully give you a great sense of creative freedom and allow you to express yourself in whatever way you like. Peter Eastway gave me that gift, and through my education I try and give that gift as well. But look up Peter's images and courses. Peter Eastway, one of Australia's best photographers, absolutely. All right, we darken the edges. Let's add a little contrast now. Again, curves layer. For contrast, generally, and there's a few ways that I teach how to do contrast in the courses, but for a standard contrast, we put 2 points, one about 25% or a quarter in from the top and one about a quarter in from the bottom. The top one pushes up a fraction, the bottom one comes down in this case, normally the bottom one comes down a fraction. In this case, it's not helping. I don't like what it's doing, so we won't. We'll just leave it where it is. So the top one mainly is going to go up and add the contrast, and you'll see contrast adds a lot of pop. Ready? Before, little flat, after, better. Before, after. You can see it's blowing those highlights, so we just won't paint it in there. Once again, invert the layer to black. Invert that to black. With our white brush, same white brush, we're going to paint the contrast into the interesting areas. That'll do. That's all we need. Peter who? Tom, you should look him up. He goes all right. Yeah, he's a pretty good, he's okay photographer, Peter Eastway. He goes all right. Jane has a Wacom question. Wacom, I don't know how to say that one. If anyone can help me, when I do a large soft brush, even though my brush looks large, my pen makes it like I'm drawing. I got no idea. If anyone can help Jane, maybe you guys can get together or something and sort that out. Turn the pressure off, says Jason. Okay, we're looking good. Let's see where we've come from so far. It's only subtle. Before, we're getting there. I think we can do more. That's not over the top, at all. Painting with pure sunlight. My favorite technique. There's other tutorials back in my other videos. We've been doing these live sessions for about 3 months. I've lost track now. I think we're up to about 50 or 60 episodes. Absolutely flying. Where did that time go? Painting with pure sunlight has been a feature a lot. Let's use it now. Solid color layer. Wow, that's bright. We're looking for an orange. Halfway between, look, if your panel doesn't look like mine, you need to click on the H. See, you can get these different ones. Click on the H there, and then click on orange, halfway between red and yellow. Click in the middle, that'll do. This will look hectic to start with. It'll look like the apocalypse. Tom Putt's only joking. If you, again, you know, yeah, he's a jokester. That's why we love him. That's why we love having Tom Putt here. Sorry, I jumped ahead there. I need to tell you what we do next. So we click OK. We come out here and change the blend mode from normal to color dodge. I told you it was going to look over the top, and that's not the kind of over the top I like. It has some potential though. Those tree leaves look okay. All right, we double click back on the colored icon to open up the menu. Now it's starting to look like what the golden light looked like to me. Okay, let's do that. Okay, again, click on the mask. It's currently affecting everything. Clicking on the H, yeah, absolutely. Look at what this one layer can do to your images though. Let's just have a look before, after. Look at the pop of golden light that it brings. Now that golden light was there, but actually even if it wasn't there, you can still paint it in with this layer. That's how good it is. Invert that to black, as we have been doing. And in actual fact, we'll lower the opacity because this is a really strong effect. We're down at 15% now. All right, and couple of sweeps across the foreground. We'll get that tree to stand out a bit more than that back one to create depth. Maybe a little bit up there. Itchy nose. Tom Putt is funny. Yes, he is very funny. We all love him. If you haven't, and Tom Putt provides a lot of entertainment here, but he provides a lot more entertainment in his Facebook group, Tom's Tribe. Jump on Facebook and look up Tom's Tribe. Click the join that one. He does a lot of live streaming over there on the Facebook platform. Okay. Can we see I've generated a little bit of light bleed around these trees? Okay, what I'm going to do is use Blend If to try and remove that. Double click here, secret 007 adjustment. Can you see that little bit of light bleed around the trees there? I want this to be restricted to the trees themselves if possible. And the way we're going to do that is with this bottom slider here. We should be able to move this darker slider. Let's see. No, move the light, not the darker one. See what happened when I moved the darker one? It pulled the light out of the trees. See that? That's the great thing about Blend If. So let me just show you how to get there again. Blend If, and again, there's some more dedicated tutorials of Blend If in my video courses in the past, which we spend 20 minutes or half an hour or even longer looking at them. Monday nights at 8 p.m. is Tom's live stream where he takes you to an exotic Australian location and talks about, you know, these incredible photographs that can be had here. You know, I know a lot of you from overseas, you can't travel to Australia at the moment, but put it on your bucket list for things to do. We've got this incredible red dirt and outback and kangaroos and crocodiles and just the red dirt and you know, diverse landscapes are incredible here in Australia and like nowhere else in the world to a certain degree. Okay. Okay, what were we doing? We're doing Blend If. And I moved the wrong one, didn't I? The dark slider was doing the wrong thing. Great thing about Blend If, if you move the wrong slider, it's very visual. You can see it doing that. So actually, if I grab this one, can you see it coming out around the tree where I painted it and staying in the tree? How good is that? Very subtle, but can you see that? And if we hold down Option or Alt, that will blend and we won't see those ugly edges. Beautiful, look how good this layer was before, after, golden light. Do we need more golden light? Maybe. Let's have a look. Let's do another one. Maybe we could do a slightly deeper red. See what happens. Okay. Color dodge. Ooh, yeah, a little bit. Over the top. Let's go for it. This time we'll just do a little bit of like highlights here. A little bit of highlights. Just where the highlights are, just give them a little pop. A little bit here. We'll get these trees up, away from those background trees. See how by adding light to these front trees, they separate themselves from the back trees. Oh, that's looking good. That's looking good. Let's Blend If to remove any bleeding again. Oops, double click that little blank space. Grab the white slider. Oh no, I was pretty good with my brushing that time. We don't have to do much at all. It didn't bleed out much at all. Looking good, looking good. Terry, are you worried about the snakes and the crocodiles? It's fine. You guys have the big bears and stuff over there. You know, every country's got those things that want to kill you, and I guess Australia has got more of them, but trust me that it's not, look, it's not something you need to be worried about. It's very rare to see these things. I mean, you can go and see the crocodiles, absolutely, in the Kimberley, and stand on the side of the bank and see these giant prehistoric 6 metre, well 6 metre is probably fairly uncommon, but you'll see 4 metre ones regularly sunning on the side of the bank and swimming in the rivers, and you can camp. The banks are quite tall in the places where you can bank, so you wouldn't want to go down and fish on the side down there or something like that, but you can camp up high, you know, where the crocs can't get you, and even fish from up high. This is spectacular being in this really prehistoric landscape, but it's very safe. It's very safe, very spectacular. If you're into that stuff, have a look. Look up Central Australia and see our spectacular landscapes. Or look up the Kimberley is one of our real gems here in Australia. We got them everywhere. Tasmania is special with its rainforests and whatnot, and all the way around the country. Much like the USA, actually. You know, very diverse landscapes because we're as big as mainland USA, roughly the same size. Okay, we're going good here. Drop bears, yeah, watch out for those Vegemite eating drop bears. All right, I feel like I want to darken the sky a little bit more. Let's see if we can do that. Curves. One thing I will say, my workflow that I'm showing you here is a little bit more freestyle than the structure I teach at Easy Way Photography, because in the beginning I want to teach you a very structured, easy to follow, easy to replicate workflow, and then as you get more comfortable, we continue to add to that structure, but then once you start bringing in your own tutorials and this and that, you can start getting a little bit more freestyle with it and a little bit more comfortable. Yeah, come over here, Terry, we'd love to have you. Okay, look at the drama you can add by just darkening down a curves layer like this. All right. Let's invert that. B for brush. We're going to be aggressive with this layer. I need to get a contract with Australian tourism, don't I? No, I love Australia and everything that it represents and everything that it offers, and I think as Australians we should be very grateful, and I feel very lucky and privileged to be living here with all the opportunities that it presents and you know, everything that it stands for. You know, we all have our little problems and whatnot and things that we would like to be better, but you know, I think overall we're very lucky here in Australia. Okay. I said we're going to be really aggressive with this layer, didn't I? And we are. And what I'm going to use is I'm going to use Blend If to try and pull that darkening out of the trees. See how I've darkened a lot of the trees too? I don't want that. I want those trees to be light and bright and vibrant. Blend If. Blend If is a little bit more of an advanced technique. So again, you won't find that in the early course, the beginner course. Tim Tams. Absolutely try our Tim Tams. And try the Vegemite. What you want to do with Vegemite when you come here, good fresh piece of toast or a good English muffin or something like that, or a bit of Turkish bread, and then get a big spoonful of Vegemite and layer it on like Nutella. And it's delicious. Give that a shot. Yeah. The Aussies will have a laugh at that. Okay, Blend If. We're going to pull it out of the darker areas, which is the trees. Oh, is it going to work this time? No, Blend If is not going to allow me to do that. Okay. This is where maybe, maybe your luminosity masks, you might be able to intersect a luminosity mask to do that, but I don't teach luminosity masks. I don't generally like to use them because Blend If will normally do everything that luminosity can do. Actually, with that being said, maybe I can intersect this. Let's try. Let me try. So actually, let me gauge. What do I need to do? I want the effect to be in the... Oh, no, the darks... The problem is the darks and the shadows. Let's just try. We might be able to get this here. Yeah, that's not too bad. Okay, I will just jump back on that mask with a black brush. Marmite and Vegemite. You're not a fan, Gay. I love Vegemite. With a black brush, I'm just going to try and bring back a little bit of that light to some of these trees here, where blend if wasn't perfect. You know, Photoshop's like that. It's not a perfect solution to everything. I mean, I wish it was, but it's just not. Okay. Alt-click. Yeah, Jason, got it. I was on the right path there. I'm going to do another darkening layer now. Command or Control I. We got there, Jason, in the end, didn't we? Brush. This time I'm going to try and steer clear of the trees a little bit more. That tree can darken off. I'm not fussed about that one. It's looking good. All right. I want a little bit more light in that foreground there. I think we can get it with contrast. Curves. Yep. There we go. A little bit more light in that foreground. A bit more light in the tree. Over the top, right? I told you. We know that we can remove this with blend if, so we'll... There we go. Oh, but it's removing the foreground. Okay. Let's fix those trees up like that. That's pretty good. How's that? It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm going to bleed it out on purpose a little bit further. Just out into the sky like this. Yes. Are you using a new version of PSCC? Terry, no, I'm not. I'm using 2019 because this is an older Mac. But my education that you can find at easywayphotography.com.au is on the latest version, or at least until the version previous to last night, which was just updated. But any new tutorials will be using the new version from last night. Oh yeah, Jason, blend if for light bleed is the business. Absolutely. We're getting there, guys. We're nearly there. I'm going to do a little bit of desaturation to the blues up here. And then we'll have a look at the before and after. Hue saturation. Look, if I click on this little hand icon, I can come to the blue sky and click on the blues. And it will set. In fact, if I hit reset, well, let me delete that and we'll start again and show you what's happening. Hue saturation. Watch this little rainbow slider down here. Here. Click on the hand, click on the blue. It sets the panel. Okay, so it restricts into that particular area, and I can just knock the color out of the blues a little bit. When you're an over-the-top editor, the first color range that goes hectic is the blue skies. They go like really candy blue, and you can generally pick a Photoshop, someone that's new to Photoshop and someone that loves going over the top like I do, by the fact that the blue skies or even the grey skies, they look like, you know, candy blue. And you don't necessarily want that. So knock the cyans down a fraction too. Okay. See the difference? That blue sky, you know, you might disagree with me, but I think it makes a more powerful image where the grey sky is grey. Those trees really pop off it, which is great. We'll leave a little bit of blues back here, just a subtle amount of blues. All right, let's add, what happens if we add just a solid color wash? Let's try it. Again, that orange color. This time we're going to use soft light, which is like a wash. Soft light blend mode. It's not quite right, is it? I don't know. I don't know. What do we think? Before? I liked it before. What if we just lower the opacity down a fraction like this? That's nice. That's really nice. Okay, just a little bit of a color wash across the image. The light on the left. Oh, this little section here is catching your eye, Jason? Was it Jason that said that? Yeah, it was. No, it wasn't. It was Seabreeze. That little bit. Yeah, the trees are drawing me in quite nicely. I'm not too fussed about that bit. I think it's just overall part of the light. All right, what else do we want to do before we finish this up? Oh, let's darken it a little bit more. Let's see if we can darken a little bit more. Let's get some drama. I like the tension of dark versus light, you know. Yeah, I'm not sure about that layer. Let's lower the opacity of that layer a bit more. Ah, so not only am I a terrible speller, my lefts and rights kind of suck too. I haven't mentioned that before, have I? Yeah, this left. Okay, so that light, again, I feel like I don't see a distraction. Unless you're talking about on that tree there, maybe. Maybe that could be a distraction, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. The other left side. Thank you. Bill, I'm just here for the magenta. Funny you should mention that, Bill. I want to get a little bit more color interest into these trees, and I think adding a little bit of red or switching the hue around a little bit might help. Click back to the top layer. We're nearly there, we're nearly there. I think we're nearly finished. Hue, I just want to, what happens? Yeah, I want a little bit of that red. Not in the entire image, invert. But let's just, autumn colors ranging from, those beautiful yellows all the way to the deep reds. I want a little bit more deep reds in here. Okay, just a little hint here and there. Maybe that's a bit much up there, right, isn't it? A little bit much. These ones could be more red over here, maybe. Later in the season for those ones. Yep, that's looking nice. Oh, the light in the sky, sea breeze. Okay. The reason I wasn't picking up on that being a distraction is that's part of the story. That's where the light's coming from. It's bursting through the clouds and illuminating everything. Yeah, absolutely. So there's no problem with having a bright highlight in the sky, if it's part of the story, and it's absolutely part of this story. The other left. All right. I still feel like I can get more light into these trees. Add a curves layer. Yeah, that's looking quite nice. All right, I think for the time being we're probably pretty close. I mean, we could mess around. Maybe we add a little bit of cold, maybe a little bit of cold into the shadows. We'll add a photo filter here. Actually, the warmth, we'll use that in the highlights. That's quite nice. So we'll take that out of the shadows. Yep. With blend if. And then we'll add another photo filter, this time a cooler one, into, which one? That's quite nice, that one, the second one. It's a bit green, that one. This one's got a little bit of a coolish magenta-ish colour, which I like. We'll add that into the shadows. So we pull that out of the highlights. And this will give us just a little bit of colour interest. A bit of a light, cold, complementary colour theme going on there. All right, we're going pretty good. Photoshop by committee, it's a lot of fun, isn't it? How about then making that area of the How about then making that area more to the color of the sky? The light area more to the color of the sky. Declan, how are you, mate? It's got a golden hue. I would expect that sunlight to be light, bright and golden. I don't think I would change that a terrible lot. I certainly wouldn't push it to grey. We could, in fact, there's some little orange highlights on the clouds back there. We could emphasize those even. But let's have a look. I quite like this. I want to add a little bit of softness and nostalgia. And one of the ways I like to do that is with a final curves layer and just pop up the black point here. We might just have a little play with the contrast too. Maybe that could be in luminosity. Sometimes you change the luminosity, the blend mode to luminosity, and it stops the colors going funky. Sea breeze, I have literally zero idea where we're going at the moment. You want to change the color of the trees to the color of the sky? Yes, Daryl, all of these techniques are possible. I haven't done a single technique today that is not possible in CS6 or 5 for that matter. Add a shopping trolley. Yep, see, well, a witch's hat or a shopping trolley, absolutely. All right, guys, let's have a look. Let's have a look what we've managed to create here. There, see that little light spot up there? Looking around the edge, that's a little bit too light. Let's darken that down just to bring it into the rest of the sky. You know, I might remove that little light spot too. And maybe that one there. That one's gone. This one's looking better. Dull this one off a little. That's looking nice, isn't it? That's looking good. What do you guys think? Should we have a look at before and after and see how we've gone? Color match back on. Oh, this is going to look horrible, isn't it? It might look great. It's interesting, different. All right, let's have a look at Sea Breeze. You're having a lend. You're having a lend to me. Oh, sorry to hear that you're having internet issues there, Robin. Okay, let's have a look at before and after, where we come from. There's a raw file. It's okay. It's okay. But it did, the reason I pulled the car over is the golden light was absolutely gorgeous. Best I've ever seen, pretty much. And the raw file just doesn't do it. It just doesn't do it justice. And I've probably gone too far like I normally do. But, you know, feel free to, you know, stop where you like, or we can go and reduce the opacity of all of this later. Anyway, let's have a look. After, it's not too, it's a little bit over the top, but it's not too bad. Okay, before. What do you guys think? Which one gets more likes? That one? Or that one? We don't care about likes, do we? We do. We kind of do. Top dart, says Jason. It looks great. Thank you, mate. Thank you. You know, in this case, we're really trying to just tease out what was already there, and you know, my style is to overly tease it out and really, really bring it up and make the image pop as much as it possibly can, which I think we've managed to do here pretty well. The next key bit of information is what you need to do is go have a cup of tea. Go have a cup of tea, and then come back and have another look before you post it on Instagram or Facebook, and just make sure it is how you want it to be, because you might come back and decide, oh, it needs to be brighter or darker or less saturated or this or that. Another tip at the end that I sometimes do too is to grab another curves layer and hit the auto button again, the automatic button. Sometimes it can just give the image a little bit more pop, a little bit more bazinga. To steal a, what's that show from? Sheldon Cooper and, talk about bazinga. Big Bang Theory, I love it. All right, that's over the top, even for me. But let's see what the other options look like. Yeah, maybe. Not so much. Not so much. All right, let's leave it on that one. What if we turn the snap neutrals on? It's not doing anything this time. Click OK. It's a little bit over the top, isn't it? I don't think I want it in the shadows, but the highlights maybe. So let's pull that out of the shadows. All right, I promised over the top, and I've managed to deliver it with an extra. Oh, it's just a little bit more pop in the height. Whoop. A little bit more contrast in the highlights. Absolutely, Matthew, that's a good tip too. Look at your images from a distance. The other tip is to turn them upside down. Image rotation, 180. If your image looks good upside down, or if your image looks good really, really small, maybe not that small, come on, like that small, you've probably got a lot of factors that are contributing to being a really impactful photograph. If it's got thumbnail appeal, as in small appeal like that, and you want to click on it, and as I zoom back like that, I can also see that there's a bit more light bleed there than what I would like, so I might have to go back and rectify that. And upside down allows you to see any distractions a little bit easier because it removes the context. Like this little bright rock, you know, I might want to remove that, or, you know, anything else that you might see that needs removing. There we go, up the right way. All right, guys, I think that's it. Relatively short show. I'm going to try and keep the shows to around about an hour, 90 minutes these days, because I think we're getting a little bit of fall off as we cross over the 90-minute mark. So I think for most people that hour, 90 minutes is around about the right time frame. You know, let me know if you really love the longer shows, and we'll still do a few odd longer shows, and we might even do a combination and get a few different guests on together and do a marathon show one day. I've been promising that for a while, but I've been really busy, so I haven't been able to organize that as yet. But guys, thanks for that. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, hit the notifications bell, join us on, we do this every Tuesday, Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Sydney time in Australia, which works out to be sometime in the evening on a Monday or a Wednesday in the USA. And for the rest of the world, compare Sydney 10 a.m. to your time in the world. You can do that via Google. And join us for the live. We have a lot of fun. Everyone gets involved. We have a chat. Everyone tells me how to process, and I pretty much ignore it sometimes and listen to others. But it's good fun, guys, and I enjoy having you all here. Hit the like button. There's a lot of info down in that description, including the weekly email tips, the Photoshop courses, and all that other info, guys. But thank you so much. Tell your friends. Tell your family to come and have some fun and join us here too. Until, I was going to say Thursday, but it is Thursday. Until next Tuesday, 10 a.m, I'll see you again. Have a great weekend. Have a great Friday, and I'll see you then. Thanks, guys. Bye for now.